Hey.
Thank you for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure. That was fun last time.
I think everyone, I know I had a great time, and I think our listeners had a great time too. So hopefully they will enjoy this one just as much, if not more.
I hope so.
I mean, it's always encouraging when somebody's willing to come back. You know, that definitely means it's not terribly scary, so.
Or that we weren't too terrible or mean. I mean, I know I can be a bit of a prima donna, but... So... Christy, did you have any questions or any specific topics you wanted to open up with Lily today?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as a good place to start, I'm interested in why you're interested in this. You know, why did this become something that you have, spent time connecting with others and building places of community? I mean, why is polyamory not just important to you, but important to, like, your world?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a big question.
Sure.
Okay, so I've been poly for about 5-ish years. I did 26 years of a very standard, vanilla, very monogamous marriage. And
very monogamous.
It was.
I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was gracefully.
It wasn't just slightly monogamous. It was like full-on monogamous.
It really was, and gracefully so. I didn't struggle with it. I didn't feel like I wasn't chomping at the bit for others the entire time.
Right.
But that marriage had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I liken it to reading a novel. And we kind of got to the last page of this really engrossing, really good book. And we just kept reading the same final page over and over and over.
Any epilogue or codas? Just not.
It was done.
Not adding anything, sure.
No, it was just that the marriage was done. And thankfully, we managed to figure that out before we got into really resenting each other. But it was kind of a near thing with the resentment because I had changed and grown and become a very different person, and I think my husband wasn't recognizing that. He had met me when I was 19, and I think he still thought that I was that same person. Right. And I was becoming very bored, very unchallenged in this marriage, and really needed to stretch and find out who I was outside of that marriage. But there was this moment where we had, towards the end, the last couple of years of the marriage, that's where things had really changed. And I had developed an attachment to somebody who was very close to the family. I cannot call it an affair. We never had sex. But it was emotionally a very heavy-duty attachment. And
something that let you know that it's possible to love another person.
Absolutely. And there was this moment where I was having an argument with my husband in which I was asking to shift that relationship into a sexual spot because it naturally would have gone there had the dynamics not been established otherwise. And we were arguing, and that's very rare for us. It was not a contentious marriage at all, but it was 3 a.m, and we were really having a serious argument. Very, very rare for us. And there was a moment where I kept saying, I want a hall pass for just this one person. I still love you, but this needs to happen. And he kept saying, that's outrageous. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Absolutely not, because this person was very close to our family. And there was a moment in which he said, I mean, you could have sex with anybody else and it would be a totally different thing, but not this guy.
Sure.
And I kept arguing about wanting to be with this guy. And then about half an hour later, like the penny dropped in my head. And I went, wait, what'd you say? Back up. Can we talk about that? And that is actually the first seed of us opening that marriage was that conversation. It still was quite a while. And we wound up going to a marriage counselor, a really, really good one here in town who has a specialty practice in which she specializes in kink and poly. At the time, I had no idea I was kinky. That was a whole separate thing. But I called her up saying, this marriage is at crisis point. It's either going to open up and change form so that it becomes an open marriage so that we can keep what is great about this marriage, or it needs to gracefully dissolve.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Right.
And that's, I think, something important for viewers to know. I mean, I myself mention that anytime I'm working with a couple, just as a way of introduction. Okay, guys, are we here to figure out how to stay together? Are we here to figure out how to get over a particular problem? Or are we here to break up and end this thing like grown-ups, politely, amicably?
Exactly.
Right.
And oftentimes that question comes as a bit of a shock to folks. I mean, the thought very much is, well, we're here in counseling. You're supposed to fix the marriage. You're supposed to make us stay together. You're supposed to talk him. You're supposed to convince her that this thing is worth staying in. And it's important to remember that people are more important than the institutions that they build. We build these institutions, marriages, governments, whatever else, to serve the people in them. And yeah, I'm not advocating for like just destroy all marriage. I know that that's kind of the messaging some of my family takes away from this program. But we're definitely not anti-marriage any more than we're anti-monogamy.
Right.
It's just a matter of finding the right fit, finding the right arrangement for
I'm
people.
very pro-marriage. I'm very much the marrying kind. You know, you've heard commitment phobe. I'm a commitment file. I love commitment. Just totally groove on it. Yeah, that was sort of how we got to that spot. And once we opened the marriage, I did a little bit of dating. He tried, but really his heart wasn't in it. He's not really built for non-monogamy particularly, although he's not a very jealous person, so he was absolutely fine with my going out. He just didn't need any other partners himself.
Sure.
So that combination of a more poly person with a more monogamous person, which happens sometimes. But then I met somebody and fell head over heels in love and found all kinds of passion, discovered kink, that as well. That was definitely part of it. And it threw into such sharp relief just how bored I was in the marriage, just how passionless that marriage had become for me, even though I have tremendous affection and respect for my ex-husband. It was suddenly very clear what I had been missing. And so that slowly and very gently led to the end of the marriage. I'm always very hesitant to tell this story to people who have concerns about polyamory because the narrative they hear very often is, open the marriage and it'll end. Well, no. No, that's not true. This marriage was done. It was the last page of the book. And I've gone on to other relationships since that are in every way as committed. I'm currently engaged, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. To one of my partners, and very, very deeply in love with another one of my partners. And those two things are side by side. They are not.
There's no mutually exclusive aspect.
There's no
to that.
mutually exclusive aspect, nor is there any hierarchical aspect for me.
Yeah, well, I think that's an important question. You talked about, this idea of a hall pass, and then, okay, everybody but this person. And so when we're looking at these different forms of non-monogamy, do you identify as polyamorous then?
Yes.
Okay. And would you ever be happy in flirting with these other ideas? Do you separate polyamory from, like a monogamish or these different terms?
For me, I mean, well, the last time I was on the show, you mentioned the book, The Jealousy Workbook. And I had not heard of that book before. It sounded intriguing. I went and got it. And
That's by Kathy Labrillo, by the way.
Yep.
Since I never have these names handy, I thought I'd actually get it together this go-around.
And one of the very first things in the book is a kind of a survey, kind of a quiz that is trying to figure out if you are more naturally monogamous, more naturally polyamorous, or kind of a hybrid. And as I read down through this survey, it's like, oh, goodness, I am just hella poly. It became very, very clear to me that while I did such a good job in that monogamous marriage, I have changed and grown so much since then. It would feel like going into a cage for me.
Sure.
But I say that without a shred of disdain for monogamy.
Right.
For the people it works for, great. I completely get it. It's not going to work for me. And that, for me, it's not because of sexual exclusivity. It's because of heart exclusivity.
The emotional.
Yeah. I love bigger than one relationship. Even just looking at my current two, major partners, they're so different as human beings from each other. And what I get from each of them and what I'm able to give to each of them is so incredibly different. If I had to, I hate even saying it, if I had to pick one of them and totally invest in that relationship and that relationship alone, it would feel like an enormous hunk of me was cut off.
Yeah, so a lot of folks debate about, this question of, is polyamory a lifestyle or is it an orientation? When I hear you speak, it sounds as if you're saying there's nothing wrong with monogamy anymore, that there's something wrong with being straight. I just happen to like women. I just happen to like men, whatever is true for you. And, there shouldn't be all these obstacles and burdens in getting that. Is that kind of how you frame things for yourself? I mean, you lived more or less happily, monogamously for years and years and years. Is that a lesser version of yourself? Is that a different version of yourself?
I mean, if it was possible for one person to give me everything I need to feed all the different sides and aspects of me and to allow me to give to that one person all the different kinds of things I've got to give, then sure, in theory, I could easily be monogamous. But that's a very tall order. And I've got these two wonderful partners. I'm looking for a third. There are some aspects of me that aren't being fulfilled even with these two amazing humans in my life. And so I am dating and looking for a third. For me, 3 is a really good number. It's, if you look at geometry, it's the first stable number. You can't build a chair with 2 legs. You can build a stool with 3 legs, and that's relatively stable. So for me, that works really, really well. It gives me enough people to bounce my energy off of and kind of rotate. I'm a lot. I'm a lot. I can be very overwhelming for one partner, just in terms of the output of affection and attention and just sheer text messages. So for me to have enough people to spread that out on is a really healthy thing.
Do you think, and I've heard different theories about this from my own therapist as well, that this expectation that we should be the end-all, be-all everything for one person, and that they should be the end-all, be-all for us in a monogamous relationship, do you find that to be just too onerous? I mean, in a sense that it's just not really doable for you?
It's not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got these really disparate needs. So, and that's not only in what I need to receive, but in what I need to give as well. So, yeah, trying to get one of my partners to provide everything, that just seems like such an onerous task for them. Right. I wouldn't want to burden them that way. And the same, I mean, one of my partners loves musical theater in a way that I cannot comprehend. And I'm absolutely delighted that at least one of his other partners can sing every lyric from Hamilton, and the two of them geek out about that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, y'all. Just, go do that in the other end of the house. And I'll hear them in the kitchen screaming out the lyrics from Hamilton, and they're so happy. And I didn't have to learn that. Yay.
Yeah, I had a partner tell me once that being polyamorous meant that she never had to watch football with me, which I had to give her to that. I was like, yeah, you're totally right. Like, your time is not obligated to me. I'm allowed to, have other people here to watch the game with, and I don't need to make that your burden.
Yeah.